Sex. It's honestly one of the oldest forces in human history, but did you know that ancient civilizations didn't just see sex as pleasure? For them, it was sacred, powerful, and sometimes forbidden. Today we're diving into the shocking sexual secrets of the ancient world, from temple rituals to royal scandals, stories that were hidden, erased, and sometimes just too shocking for modern history books. In ancient Egypt, sexuality was not seen as something shameful or sinful. It was actually considered a sacred and divine force, woven into the very fabric of their beliefs and daily life. The Egyptians believed that the act of creation itself was rooted in sexuality, and that the gods and goddesses who shaped their world were intimately connected to these powerful energies. Pharaohs, the rulers of Egypt, were thought to be direct descendants of the gods, and their right to rule was often justified through myths of sacred sexual unions. These unions, sometimes depicted in temple art and stories, symbolized the merging of divine and earthly realms, ensuring the fertility and prosperity of the land. One of the most fascinating myths tells us that the god Adam, a creator deity, brought the world into existence through an act of self-pleasure. This story wasn't hidden or whispered about, it was celebrated, carved into temple walls, and retold for generations as a testament to the creative power of sexuality. In this way, creation itself was inseparable from sexuality. The Egyptians saw the act of bringing forth life, whether by gods or humans, as a sacred, vital process, deserving of reverence and ritual. Temple rituals often included sacred sexual acts performed by priests and priestesses to honor fertility gods like Hathor and Isis. These ceremonies were believed to renew the land's abundance and maintain harmony between the people and the divine. Far from being taboo, these rituals were public, celebrated, and essential to Egyptian spiritual life. For the ancient Egyptians, intimacy and sexuality were not sources of shame. They were the very force of life itself, celebrated in art, myth, and ritual, as the foundation of existence and the key to the universe's ongoing renewal. In ancient Mesopotamia, the birthplace of civilization, sexuality was tied directly to religion. The goddess Inanna, or Ishtar, was worshipped through ritual sex acts in temples. This is where the idea of sacred prostitution comes in. Historical records suggest that women would offer themselves at the temple as an act of devotion, believing their union with a stranger honored the goddess. For Mesopotamians, sex wasn't just human, it was divine service. When we think of ancient Greece, images of marble temples and legendary philosophers might come to mind. But beneath the surface, this civilization was also renowned for its remarkably open attitudes towards sexuality and desire. Unlike many later societies, the Greeks didn't shy away from discussing or depicting erotic themes. In fact, sexuality was woven into the very fabric of their myths, daily life, and even their understanding of the cosmos. The gods themselves, Zeus, Aphrodite, Dionysus, were legendary for their passionate escapades. Zeus, the king of the gods, was infamous for his countless affairs with both goddesses and mortals, often transforming himself to pursue his desires. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, embodied the irresistible force of attraction, while Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy, encouraged followers to surrender to pleasure and abandon restraint. These stories weren't just entertainment, they shaped how Greeks viewed love, lust, and the divine. But sexuality in Greece wasn't only about the gods. It was a subject of deep philosophical inquiry. Thinkers like Plato and Socrates debated the nature of desire, love, and the soul. They saw erotic attraction as a force that could lead to higher understanding, inspiring creativity, and even spiritual growth. For them, desire was not just a physical urge, but a bridge to wisdom. In daily life, Greek society openly accepted same-sex relationships, especially between older men and younger apprentices. These bonds, known as pederasty, were seen as a vital part of education and personal development. Through mentorship, conversation, and sometimes intimacy, young men learned about ethics, politics, and the arts. This acceptance was reflected in their art, literature, and social customs. Festivals dedicated to Dionysus were wild, ecstatic affairs. People gathered to celebrate with music, dance, wine, and uninhibited revelry. These events broke down social barriers, allowing participants to explore their desires freely and connect with the divine through ritual and pleasure. For the Greeks, desire was never something to be hidden or shamed. Instead, it was a powerful force, sometimes leading to joy, sometimes to chaos, but always seen as a vital part of what it meant to be human. In their world, passion was a pathway to pleasure, knowledge, and at times even madness. If Greece celebrated sexuality, weaving it into their myths, art, and daily life, then Rome took that celebration and amplified it to an entirely new level. The Greeks saw desire as a force of nature, but the Romans made it a spectacle, an essential part of their culture, politics, and even their legends. Rome took it to another level, transforming the city into a stage where power and pleasure played out in public and private alike. The city's grand architecture and bustling streets were backdrops for stories of excess and intrigue. Roman emperors were infamous for their sexual appetites, often using their positions to indulge in desires that shocked even their contemporaries. Their exploits became legendary, whispered about in the marble halls of palaces and written in scandalous scrolls. Some stories honestly are just too scandalous for modern classrooms. Tales of forbidden affairs, secret lovers, and wild parties were common but rarely spoken of openly today. Emperor Caligula, for example, was rumored to host these lavish orgies, where the boundaries of decency were pushed to their limits. His feasts were legendary for their extravagance and their shocking entertainment, while Emperor Nero was said to have married not one, but two men. His personal life blurred the lines between tradition and rebellion, challenging the norms of his time and leaving historians both fascinated and appalled. Roman banquets often ended with feasts of the flesh, where the pleasures of the table gave way to pleasures of the body. These gatherings were more than just meals. They were displays of status, power, and unrestrained indulgence. In these decadent halls, politics, pleasure, and power all mixed together. Alliances were forged, secrets were traded, and ambitions were realized, all under the flickering light of oil lamps and the watchful eyes of Rome's elite. But here's the shocking twist. Beneath the surface of all this freedom and excess, a new force was quietly rising, one that would challenge everything Rome stood for. While Rome enjoyed its sexual freedom, the city's streets buzzed with rumors and debates about morality, tradition, and the future. Change was in the air, even if most didn't see it coming. The rise of Christianity began to change everything, introducing new ideas about virtue, restraint, and the meaning of desire. What was once celebrated now became suspect, and the old ways were slowly pushed aside. In time, sex was transformed from something sacred into something sinful. The world of Rome would never be the same again. In ancient India, sexuality was celebrated as spiritual. The Kama Sutra wasn't just a book of positions. It was a guide to love, pleasure, and the art of intimacy. Temples like Khajuraho were decorated with erotic carvings, showing that for ancient India, desire was not hidden, it was divine. Sexuality was seen as a pathway to union with the divine, a balance between body, mind, and spirit. In ancient China, Taoist masters believed that sexual energy was life energy. They practiced techniques to conserve and channel it, believing it could extend life and bring spiritual power. Texts describe how emperors would engage in rituals with multiple partners, not for pleasure alone, but to absorb energy, increase vitality, and ensure balance between yin and yang. For them, sex was a form of medicine. Here's the truth. Ancient civilizations were far more open about sexuality than we are today. They saw it as sacred, powerful, and even world-changing. But much of this history was erased, especially when new religions rose, branding these practices as immoral. Why? Because controlling sexuality often meant controlling society, and history shows us, power always lies in what is hidden. These sexual secrets of ancient civilizations remind us of something powerful. Sexuality has always been more than just physical. It shaped religion, culture, and even empires. So I want to hear from you. Which civilization's secrets shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. If you enjoyed this journey into the forbidden past, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next mystery uncovered.